this committee of the whole to order, and motion to adopt the agenda would be in order.
Move. Second.
All in favor? Motion's carried. We have one delegation this afternoon. We have Charlene Gray here to present on a community plan for integrated early childcare. And so I ask you to come forward, Charlene, and congratulations once again on your award.
Thank you very much. So thank you for the opportunity to come back again. I was here a year or so ago for the Child Sign Project.
Charlene, if you could just come to the podium here, that way we can hear you better on the web cam.
Great. And so, yes, my name is Charlene Gray. I'm an early child educator here in the Comox Valley, and I'm here to present, there's no acronym, I'm sorry, it's the Community Plan for a Public System of Integrated Early Care and Learning. It's a provincial plan brought to you by the Early Child Educators of BC, which is our professional organization, and I'm a provincial board member, and the Coalition of Childcare Advocates of BC. Those two organizations that put the plan together. I was on the advisory committee that built this plan some 2 years ago, and we're bringing it around to communities and businesses in hopes of garnering letters of support or endorsement, and which I can show you that we already have several of those. And so the plan, as I said, is a partnership between the two community organizations. It emerged through an extensive briefing process. In 2010, we began traveling across the province, getting ideas from communities and from early child educators on what they saw as the crisis in the early care and learning field, and how they saw us merging with the public education system. We're a very fragmented sector. We have private, not-for-profit, big box, all sorts of family child care, and we really don't have much regulation in the way that we're governed. And so we're hoping that we can integrate into the Ministry of Education so that we can become universally accessible as public education is. And so through our briefing process, emerged this plan, and we were bringing it around the province for the past year. Our plan builds on and doesn't repeat well-established evidence, and by that we mean that early care and learning is important for child's overall development, and we all know the research about brain development for children from birth to 5 years old. And early care and learning, as defined in this plan, is prior to school entry at kindergarten. And so that's the separation between 0 to 5, and then 5 years up is kindergarten and on up. So you might not know it, but Canada ranks almost 4th in developed countries for our wealth based on our GDP, and yet we rank last on the amount of spending we put into early care and learning. And then when people see, I have a very nice graph in the 2-hour presentation that shows that. And it's quite depressing, actually, to know how little we as Canadians value children before they enter school. And so on the one hand, British Columbia has implemented full school day kindergarten for 5-year-olds as a way to address the early care and learning for 5-year-olds, so the daycare for 5-year-olds. But it doesn't address the full day. It addresses from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock, or whenever your school day is. So we purposely call it full school day kindergarten because parents need care before and after school as well. And BC has promised a junior kindergarten for 3 and 4-year-olds. That has been in and out of the media for the past maybe 2 or 3 years. We personally don't know where it's going from here, but that is the promise. And there is a false divide between childcare. Childcare is in the Ministry of Children and Family Development. Early learning is in the Ministry of Education. And we would like to hold that there is no learning without care. So we can't divide the two, but right now there is. Childcare has been in almost every ministry except the Ministry of Highways. We've kind of been shifted around, and so we'd like to find a new home in the Ministry of Education. So BC has an ongoing childcare crisis, and in every community it certainly is different. In Metro Vancouver, you will find it much different than in the Comox Valley. In Metro Vancouver, they just had one of their big box daycares put childcare fees up for toddlers up to $1,200 a month, which is quite a crisis. You can also, at the University of BC's daycare, go on the wait list for childcare at the moment of conception, and you may get a space by the time your child is 5. So for them, space and affordability. Here in the Comox Valley, certainly affordability is an issue. Childcare is the second highest family expense next to mortgages. And if you have more than one child, then it often exceeds your mortgage. And if you have a child under 3 and live in Vancouver, it's much higher than your mortgage. And there's no RESP for early care and learning, but early care and learning from birth to 5 costs more than it does to send your child to university. And so this is what BC families are facing, and it's a very, for me it's a child right, but it also is a very economic problem as well when you look at what BC families are facing. And for us, We have low wages. We start barely minimum. A full-time childcare worker probably would qualify for full subsidy from the government if they had their own child in care, because they earn so little. And of course, few spaces and more big box chains. And by big box, I don't mean maybe 2 or 3. I mean a giant corporation that comes in, like Edulin out of Australia, that's come in, and they go to a corporation and they give them a bunch of daycare spaces, and they have a bunch of investors, and they answer to their investors. And their fees go up and up and up, and the quality goes down and down and down. It's in BC now, unfortunately, and also in Victoria, and it's not the answer. Like I said, $1,200 a month for childcare is a little excessive. And so our plan integrates the strength of both sectors. In public education, it's universal. You have rights to education. There's public funding. It's democratically controlled. It's supported by the public, and there's an infrastructure to deliver. If you're standing in line at a grocery store and someone says, "What do you do?" and they say, "I'm a teacher," people know what that means. If someone says, "I'm an early child educator," most of the time they'll go, "Huh?" And so we're looking to piggyback on with the strengths of public education, which we know is not perfect, but it is a good model for us to build on. Quality childcare has care at the core. That is what we do. We have respect for children's rights. We have play-based holistic programs, and we have intimate relationships with families, and we value that the child is first and foremost a member of the family and then the community. So if you see those two strengths of public education and childcare, putting them together, it's a win-win situation. And so that's what we're looking to do. This is a Made in BC plan. Certainly we've looked to other provinces and other countries for what it is that they have been doing in integrating the two systems, but this is Made in BC. It's specifically geared to what we need in our province. It builds on international and national evidence that shows that integration of care and learning under one lead ministry is the way to go. Childcare and education is already integrated in 4 provinces and 2 territories, and I have lists and lists of countries that it's integrated in. And we're looking for a strong and equal partnership between early care and learning, not for us to be the low guys on the totem pole. We're looking for a partnership of early care and learning and public education. And to work, it must build the capacity of the childcare sector. Like I said, we're very unregulated. People think we're much more regulated than we are. We need to have a sector that has much more infrastructure to deliver programs. So features of the plan. And so what would happen is all the childcare centers and early learning centers that are already existing would contract with the Ministry of Education to provide the service, and they would then be funded. And so you're going to keep the same unique programs that are around the valley. Parents will still have a right to choose where their child goes, what kind of program their child wants. We've got Montessori, we have Reggio Inspired. Everyone has a unique culture in their center, and we're not looking to get rid of that. There's small centers and big centers. Families will have a choice to send or not to send. And so they would contract with the Ministry of Education to provide these services if they meet some accountability measures, which would be to cap parent fees at $10 a day, which now it ranges anywhere from $20 to $40 a day, and $7 a day for part-time, and free for families with incomes under $40,000. I leave the threshold, and I'm not exactly sure on my numbers because it changes. In order to get subsidy, you need to make under $28,000 a year to get partial subsidy for your child to go to child care. So we have that working poor where people who are medium income families having to pay money for child care. And so we're looking for it to be free with families under incomes under $40,000. You need to commit as a center who receives funding to improve the wages and education of your staff. A lot of staff in centers and family centers are not qualified. They're not educated at all. And again, their wages are very low with very, very few benefits. So we're looking at $25 an hour with 20% benefits. That's our goal. And we need to include all children. Some centers will not take children with subsidy because subsidy takes a long time to get in. Some centers will not take children who have special needs because that requires a higher level of staffing. And so in order to get public funding, you need to be accountable and include all children in your programming. You need to meet a demonstrated community need, much like you do when you build a new school. You're not going to build a new school if the numbers don't show you need one. Existing services would be able to operate. Any new programs would have to meet a demonstrated community need. And the program would need to be consistent with early learning frameworks, which is our basic best practices. It's a document put out by the Ministry of Education on early care and learning. And so if you were to follow these accountability measures, then you would be able to receive public funding. The highlights of the plan: we need an Early Care and Learning Act, much like we have a School Act. The School Act is a right. It's a law. We don't want to belong to the School Act because some things in the School Act are not appropriate for children under 5. We don't need report cards for 2-year-olds. We need a specific Early Care and Learning Act that addresses the needs of children under 5 years old. Once it's enacted, it cannot be changed of the government of the day. We need to be in the home in the Ministry of Education. We're not talking physically in their building, although that may happen. A home meaning figuratively that we belong under that umbrella. And we need an expanded role for boards of education so that they would have people on their boards dedicated to make sure that these things happen, because they're overworked as it is. So this comes with the kinds of infrastructure that they would need. We would have networks of early year centers. Right now we don't know what's going on down the street in the center down the street from us. We're all very competitive. There's not support systems set up like there is in schools. So we would become a network of early year centers where parents would go to a hub and say, here's what I need, what's in the community. We share resources, we share substitutes, we share education. We want to enhance kindergarten and grade 1 and school age care with child care before and after school in schools as well. And we need a big and strong investment in the early childhood education workforce. The implementation steps, we need to commit to a vision and immediate action, which is what we're doing now. We need to pass the Early Care and Learning Act, which we are hiring a consultant to write that for us because, as you can well imagine, an act is quite something to put together. We need to commit to bold targets and timelines. We're currently putting together a 5-year strategic plan. And we need to develop a 5-year budget with new funds and prioritize early year centers that have full-time care. We need to have spaces for children to go. So those are our priorities right now. So support and endorsement. Now this slide is very old. I have 3 pages that I'll leave with you, and you can go onto our website, read the entire plan, view the entire presentation, which takes about an hour, that has much more fancy graphics than I do. But the list of supporters, community, personal, business, municipal, is growing by the thousands daily. People want to see this plan into action. They absolutely do. And I know there's big questions about funding, and I certainly can tell you that it would be $1.5 billion a year to get this fully implemented. That is a gradual. We're talking about generational shift. This is going to take 10 years to get into implementation. We don't have the resources to get it. If someone said, go tomorrow, we don't have the resources to put it into place. So it's a generational shift. It's a huge shift. It's very bold, and we're not embarrassed about asking for what it is that we need. In a budget of $40 billion, $1.5 billion for the earliest citizens, I don't think is very much. These are just some of the supports and endorsements that we do have. But like I said, I will leave with you a full list that is current as I know. So we're mobilizing support. Sample motion, we're asking municipalities to support or endorse the plan, but we're very respectful, knowing that you have language issues that you may not be able to endorse, but you might want to write a letter of support. So we're leaving the language open to what it is that municipalities, businesses, and people feel comfortable using. But these are just some of the sample motions that have been passed around the province recently. And as I said, there's 2 municipalities, one on BC, one on the island, and one in the interior, that I have copied their endorsements from their municipalities that I will leave for you just sort of to guide you in your discussions around it. And so thank you very much, and I'm more than willing to answer questions. And I know that there's lots. Like I said, this is almost a 2-hour presentation, but time is right, so.
Thank you, Charlene. And Councillor Grant has a question.
Hi, Charlene. Have you spoken with the provincial government and the Minister
Yes,
of
we have.
Education? Because they're going to end up having to fund this.
Absolutely.
And it's a big chunk of change you're asking for. So
it is.
What are their thoughts?
Yeah, we have spoken with the past Minister of Education, and he actually was on air and said he really thought the plan was the way to go. He couldn't find anything wrong with it. He really liked the ideas, but of course it's the money issue. But money is a choice for governments, and there are ways that they can find the money to do this. In Quebec, they have a $7 a day daycare plan, and they have already seen in the past 7 years $1 for return for every dollar that they invest. In Ottawa sees 44 cents on top of that. So we do have figures, which I will leave with you, fact sheets that show that investing, just looking at the numbers and investing in early care and learning, workforce, expendable income that people can give back, social services, less money for social services. We have the facts and figures with the Human Early Learning Partnership at UBC to show that this actually is a very wise economic decision.
Councillor Price.
Yes, and thank you for the presentation. And we were at the UBCM
Yes,
convention.
absolutely.
And you know, this came up quite a lot. This whole message that the under 45-year-olds are the ones who are really struggling because of, childcare costs and mortgage costs.
Absolutely.
And Dr. Paul Kershaw,
Yes.
I don't know whether you're working with him.
Yes, we are. Yeah.
He's a big proponent of the...
The 15 by 15.
Yes.
Yes. And it is him and his team that has actually put the funding models together for us for the plan. So the fact sheets that I'll leave with you that go with the plan actually have quotes from his 15 by 15 report. So he's
So how do you see this moving ahead? You're drafting an act that I'm sure you're going to present to the provincial government.
Yes.
Have you got a champion, someone who's willing to take it forward?
We have several people who are very, very interested in it, but of course this is going to be a very big major election issue come next fall, and so that we're looking for champions, and we've certainly spoken to lots of opposition members who of course would like to jump on board with it. They want the money answers too, because so they're not willing to jump and say, yes, we'll do it if we get elected, because it's a big chunk of change, really. So we would present our strategic plan first, and our budget, and the act, because once the act is enshrined, then we can move forward. Anything we do before the act is enshrined is in danger of collapsing when governments change and when the will of the public and those sorts of things change.
Councillor McKinney.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. Can you refresh my memory of other countries that have early childhood education funding in place?
Mixed with the education, in New Zealand, Spain, Slovenia, England, Scotland, Brazil, Iceland, Norway, and that's all I have on my brain at the moment. But in our fact sheets we have all of them listed. In Canada, it's in Ontario, New Brunswick, PEI, Saskatchewan, Nunavut, and the Northwest Territories.
Fully funded.
In their public education system, yeah.
No further questions. Thank you for your presentation. It's probably not as well known that this very council chambers was a daycare, not
Yes,
laundry.
Roseberry, yes it was.
Little Children's, actually, from the Comox Church, and I was involved close to 20 years ago in establishing it. And the issues that you've raised are not new ones, the low pay and the high cost on the other side. So wish you all the best in your advocacy, and certainly we'll bring it back to council once staff have looked at some of your sample endorsements and resolutions. You can pass them through to Shelley here, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
All right, we don't have any minutes of meetings to review. We do have a number of departmental reports at page 3 from our Director of Finance. We have the third release of the 2011 census data just for receipt.
I move receipt.
Second.
Received then, all those in favor? Motion is carried. Any questions or comments? Pretty self-explanatory, but go ahead.
I thought it was interesting, the breakdown on the housing, that when we look at the single detached house and the semi-detached, it's over 3/4 of our housing stock compared to half for the provincial average, which certainly jumped out, and the age of our population is certainly another factor.
Yeah, certainly we've seen that aging demographic hitting us. I know I just found some stuff from 2006, the census that indicated that trend, and so that's continuing. And we are getting more multifamily development as we go, but a large part of Comox is developed already as single family. So it'll change gradually, but probably not getting anywhere close to the somewhat more urban centers. Anything further on that? Yes, Councillor Fletcher.
Just on that vein, we talk about multifamily, but this report shows in specific the apartment building. We're certainly shy of the average on that, and I'm just wondering, perhaps the chair to staff, is there anything that council could be doing or considering that we aren't already doing to address that lack of housing stock?
Perhaps our planner would care to comment?
In the apartment building area, well, I mean, we currently don't allow 5 or more stories. So that's going to really affect our numbers of other centers that have high-rise apartments. We'll start agitating that. Right now, the demand that we're seeing is in ground-orientated types of housing. And a lot of that is actually being pushed by our aging demographic in terms of patio homes. Still popular single-family dwellings understanding is the multifamily, our first 3-story townhouse multifamily, that was thought to be the harder sell at 700 Lancaster. It was very positively received. So that's encouraging. We might see more activity in that area in terms of directed to young families, which would help our demographics as well.
I think you also have the challenges that we've experienced as a council resisting even a townhouse or a 2 or 3-story building as opposed to something at higher density. And so that's the challenge that we have to meet. The other thing is financially, it hasn't been generally a good return on investment building apartments for quite a few years now, probably since the 80s, when there were federal programs that supported the construction of those kinds of for-rent apartments. But when you look at what the City of Vancouver is going through now and some of their proposals, they're having to look at that in existing neighborhoods and to deal with the densification issues. We've seen little snippets of that, but given the limited land base that we have, we'll certainly have to look at any proposals that come forward. Councilor Grant?
Well, you also have to remember that it's really a market-driven thing. And if you look at sales volumes and the way real estate sales, the demographics that you're seeing flow exactly along the lines of what the sales are. So you've got about 70% of the market looking for single family and the rest scattered amongst the other types. So, you know, I've seen lots of communities try and buck the market-driven trend, and I've yet to see it work anywhere. So, you know, as you say, you can tinker with it and you can play, but people are going to buy what they want to, or they're not going to come here.
Councilor Kent?
Boy, these census figures are sure interesting to look at, and I think our decision to go with secondary suites has a lot of merit here. Looking at these figures here, and I noticed this, and I don't have the realty experience that some people in the room have, but the number of 4- and 5-bedroom homes in our community that are on the market and not selling now, because there's not families, young families that have 4 and 5 kids. And our decision to look at secondary suites seems to me to make even more sense to help move those homes and get families considering buying them. These figures certainly seem to support that.
Yeah, it's a wise use of existing housing stock, as you would indicate. All right, anything further on that? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item, which is a write-off request for a late payment penalty. Recommendation from your staff that can we receive the letter from Craig Freeman.
I would move receipt of that. Thank you.
Second.
Receipt, all those in favor? Motion is carried. Anything further coming in or not? He has requested a waiver of that penalty, but staff are recommending against that for the reasons indicated in the report. So, if there's a third motion coming forward on it, we'll just move on. No questions?
Well, you know, my heart goes out to people like this, and I guess the bottom line for me is the thought that the check was in the mail, and the distinction between that and somebody who hasn't got their house in order and didn't get the check in the mail. I wonder if that deserves consideration here.
Unfortunately, it might in other circumstances, but when it comes to taxes, it has to be received. And that's the onus, and that's a provincial statute that we have to abide by. So just because you've left it in a mailbox somewhere, unless you're sure that it gets here, it's your onus to have it here by that time. And we've had people show up at Town Hall the very next day, and they forgot to do it, and so on and so forth, but the penalty's automatic.
I just wondered what the process was, you know, because it mentions that it is a provincial decision. So is it a case that a municipality can recommend to the province, but is it the province that ultimately makes the decision?
We've encountered this in the last number of months. We've had several situations. I think there was a fellow who was away in Afghanistan. There was some other issues with somebody else's banking. We don't have a policy on it. Certainly the provincial government, if we did have a policy, we could say, well, this is what we've applied and we grant forgiveness under this policy, but otherwise you're going to have dealing with these things on a one-by-one basis. And think the challenge here, for me anyway, and probably staff would agree, is that, we have hard and fast rule that has to be here at that time, unless there's extenuating circumstances that council decides, and again, it would ultimately be the province that would waive it. Where does it end? We grant this one, and the next one comes along slightly different, and on it goes. We could be dealing with these every year, 4 or 5.
Well, and we do give a lot of time for people to get their checks in. I mean, if you wait till the last week or the last few days, you've got months really to get your checks in and get them in order. And we also allow people to post-date the checks. So, it's unfortunate in this case, but it's not as though they didn't have lots of opportunity.
Our staff are pretty willing to assist and make recommendations, and I know it's a very busy time for staff at the counter when all the people are coming in, but I've seen them bend over backwards to deal with people on the phone saying, look, go to this bank, this is how you do it. And really, we do as much hand-holding as possible, but in the circumstances here, I personally don't see it as warranting any exemption. It's just one of those things we have to abide by the provincial deadlines, and the rule is that if you don't pay and it's not here, then it's 10%. Any further? Seeing none, we'll move on. Page 9, creation of the lift station and waterfront capital reserve. So
Move first, second, and third readings.
it will be actually forwarded to council for that purpose. That would be your motion.
Yeah, sorry.
So
Only
that,
a few pounds.
yep, and that is to put all our reserves into one bylaw, and staff made that recommendation, so it's been moved. Is there a seconder?
I second it.
And on discussion of that, you'll note that with respect to the waterfront development capital reserve, the purpose has been described generally as for the building structures and landscaping along the Comox Marina waterfront. If council has a different intent for those funds, we should include that within the bylaw. Yes. Councilor Fletcher.
Actually, on that, I know that it says the buildings, structures, and landscaping. I was wondering, structures and buildings seem to be a similar piece to me. I would like to see infrastructure. I know we've talked about issues of whether it's power or whether it's water or sewer or whatever. So I'd like to say for the buildings, infrastructure, and landscaping.
I think structures is probably referring to things like docks and piers. So I think those words should stay in there, but what you could say is building structures, landscaping, and related infrastructure.
Okay,
That might work.
better, thank you.
Yes.
Could I just, was there some reason why infrastructure wasn't put in there? Was it just an oversight, or?
Well, I guess it depends how you define infrastructure.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's what I'm getting at. Like,
Oh, I think it's
I understand
intended-
the need for water and power and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if that was just an oversight in the intention, or if it was left out for a specific reason.
I don't believe it was left out for any reason.
No.
Dr. Vance. Just wordsmithing, really.
Yeah.
So with that change, that's a friendly.
Mm-hmm.
We won't apply the UBCM strict rules on what's friendly, what isn't. So we'll call that a friendly and move it forward to council for first, second, and third reading with those words, assuming this motion passes. Anything further? Councilor Fletcher.
And just on the process, because we talked about this last week, about moving a bylaw for first, second, and third. And we discussed last week, well, it wasn't a new bylaw, it was, we were amending that bylaw. But now this is being spoken as a new bylaw.
That's not exactly what I said last week. What I said was, it was a new bylaw that we did last regarding fireworks. It was given 3 readings, as is common for many of our bylaws, property tax exemption being one. We were upgrading our fireworks bylaw, and so in my view, if council wants to put this forward to first reading and leave it at that, or first and second and leave it at that, the only time we normally leave it at first and second and wait for third is where it's a rezoning and a public hearing is required. But typically, and you'll see this in our procedure bylaw, we give 3 readings to all of our bylaws, whether amendments, new bylaws, what have you. Unless there's some other reason that council wants to delay, say, third reading. And the only, as I say, mandatory phase for that is when we're doing public hearings and rezonings. So I think that's what a procedure bylaw says. And At this point, we're actually not giving it readings, we're just saying it would be forwarded to council for first, second, and third reading. You would have to decide next week, when it's brought forward, whether to give it all 3 readings, or sorry, the first 3 readings, and then to consider adoption at a later date. So at a minimum, there is 2 weeks between 3 readings and final adoption.
So that guarantees, your worship, a minimum 2 weeks,
Yes,
minimum,
yes, between council votes.
and for public to respond.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, if council wants to engage in other public process, have open houses, have stuff go in the newspaper, et cetera, that's always within the purview of council for any matter. And you can hold it at third reading or second reading, whatever reading you want, for whatever time period you want. But typically, on these matters, which are largely operational in nature, we give it 3 readings and then wait for, we can't do all 3 plus a meeting.
So, yeah, I just misunderstood what you said to the gentleman last week when you asked about that. I thought,
No.
that's good.
It's a judgment call of council at the time. I mean, we had a bylaw that prohibited fireworks, and we were strengthening that bylaw and adding to it. So, at least in my mind, I wasn't even here for the first 3 readings, so you guys gave it 3 readings, and then we considered adoption last week, so. Anyway, if you want to do something different, council has to resolve to do that at the time the readings are given. For this one, again, I don't think it's probably going to be one that we want to delay unnecessarily. Unless there's issues here I'm not aware of. We do lots of bylaws throughout the year.
Call the question?
Yep. Those in favor? Motion's carried. So that'll be brought to next week's meeting, all things going on. We have at page 15, actually, the bylaw summary report, sort of bylaw enforcement quarterly summary.
Move receipt.
Thank you. Seconder for that?
Second.
Receipt then, all those in favor? Motion's carried. Anything arising out of that? Our bylaw officer continues to be busy.
Yeah, just wondering what we did before we had one. Seems to have done a lot of stuff here. I know.
Again, it's a sign of community growth and issues between neighbors, et cetera. So, yes.
I just wondered, on Painter Place there was an oil leak, and I wondered if that had anything to do with an oil tank. I've read several cases in Victoria where there's been problems with oil leaking out of tanks and getting into water systems, and I just wonder whether we
Sorry
have
about underground oil tanks that people heated their house with oil.
or above ground, and it gets into a little tributary and then it gets into
Painter
the creek.
Place?
That's a fairly...
That's a new subdivision. I don't think you'd see an oil tank there.
That would be the case.
Might have been somebody's car.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a...
I just wondered if we had any plans if that should happen. It's an unusual situation. It's happened 2 or 3 times in Victoria, a much bigger area, but I just wondered.
Especially older housing stock.
Yes.
I mean, there might be some old parts of town which still heat with oil, but typically it's a responsibility of the homeowner. Hopefully they have insurance. If not, then we deal with our insurance.
Well, for the most part, at the time of sale, if you have an old oil tank, you'd get a building inspection, and that property would, in most cases, be remediated at that time. And sometimes there's lots of old oil tanks around the valley, especially in the older areas that were buried underground, and many of them have had that problem over the years. But it's something that usually gets remediated at the time of sale, and a further negotiation gets done when it's found. So.
Yeah, it's a private property matter at this point, but there was a leak from somebody's tank. Obviously, staff would have to address it to the extent that it got into a Fishbone Creek or what have you. So hopefully that doesn't happen. The one in Saanich, I think, was quite serious impact on Fishbone Creek there. Yes, sir.
Yes, Your Worship. In regards to disputes between neighbors, my understanding is the first step is to contact the bylaw, refer them to the bylaw officer here, and if they're unable to come to any resolution, I've been asked by the Community Justice Center to remind councillors that they're open to settling disputes between neighbors if the 2 parties are willing to meet in restorative justice community justice
Our
situation.
bylaw officer probably knows that information, but not,
Yeah, we have referred.
we have, okay.
At least two that I know of.
Yes, they can be difficult situations, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. Yes, Councillor Fletcher.
I was just wondering, staff know, the Kingsley Court, on page 16, it's noted as a covenant contravention. And I assume that's the backside of the property that would be on Pritchard. We have a covenant all along. And who holds the covenant on that? Is it the town itself, or do we have,
CAO? Which town?
it's the town itself?
Yes. That's a no removal of vegetation
Right.
covenant?
Yeah.
That's what I would suspect it would be. And of course, these things are largely done on a complaint basis. All right. Seeing nothing further, we'll move on to the planning building report for receipt, orientation one.
Move receipt.
Second.
On receipt then, all those in favor? Motion's carried.
It's on page 19, actually.
I must have an old copy. Mine says 21, but anyway, whatever. Any questions for our planning, our planner here on the report? Anything you wish to add further to it, Mr. Planner?
No.
I understand that the matter, planning application for 1865 Queens is slated to come before council next week?
Yes.
Sid, one quick question. I know we've made some changes in our planning department, and we've tried to speed up the process and make it a little easier. I've heard some positive comments from some of the people out there in the last about 6 months. And I was just wondering if how that was working from the planning department's point of view, and if you're hearing the same types of things.
We haven't heard the positive comments.
Yeah, but I've heard so.
Yeah, I mean, we have noticed definitely with clearing of the backlog and some of the new principles that we're able to put in, we've got things going at a pretty good clip right now, and we're hoping to formalize and expand that in terms of our a review of our procedures bylaw, which we should be starting within about the next month. So we hope to be able to build on that.
Have you seen a steady number again of secondary suite applications? I know that's done at a building permit level now, not through a rezoning. Has that continued to be quite active?
It's really peaks and troughs, right? Is what we're getting in the last quarter. We only issued one single family, one secondary suite. Yeah, so it's really depending on the time of the year.
I noticed in the Building Links publication today that the permit for building at the so-called Three Amigos project, or Amigo Ventures, has been issued. So
I believe that's in error. I don't know where that.
somebody was excited.
Yeah, somebody said it will be issued. I know there was a bonding outstanding item as of this morning. So once that's submitted, then it will be issued. It's ready to go.
You don't believe everything that's written in the paper?
No.
You're not laughing over there.
No. Right over there. Gotta believe everything on the radio, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Seeing nothing further on that, I don't think anyone else has any other questions. We have the monthly policing report for August for receipt.
Move receipt.
Receipt, all those in favor? Motion's carried. Any questions or comments? We'll, of course, have our inspector on a quarterly basis, so probably later in this year. And then lastly, the rec department management report for receipt.
I'll move receipt.
Second.
Receipt, all those in favor? Motion's carried. Any questions for the rec director, Mr. Stevenson's here? Yes.
Yeah, I was just interested in the probiotic bacteria as a cleaning. I was thinking of opening up my little things in the fridge. I mean, is it, how does that work?
It has several components to it. Mostly it's a general fogging machine that goes and sprays and uses a fog with everything. And when the good bacteria eats up all the dirt, all the things, leaving nothing left for the bad bacteria because they're more aggressive. And then the bad bacteria become dormant and we can get rid of them. And with a normal cleaner, once you wipe it, it leaves the plate clean basically for bad bacteria to come back. But with the good bacteria, they work for anywhere from 3 to 5 days and continue to clean. And it's quite noticeable, the difference actually. We did some tests on some of the furniture and you can see the difference right away in cleaning. It's quite well in our testing done as far as the bacterial count. Bad bacteria in some cases run from 5,000 to 800 kinds of things. So it's been very positive. And we have a lot of, I mean, if you go in the gymnastics facility, for example, there's a lot of equipment all over everywhere to try and get that cleaned. It's almost impossible to wipe down each piece of equipment and get around where we can fog it. It pretty much settles on everything and cleans it up so there's nothing there.
Well, that's okay for me to go back to spin class now? I tend to leave a puddle underneath. Go ahead.
I just wondered, and I think it's great that we've got the town recreation inclusion program that we've introduced that or similar to other places. And I just wondered, how do we advertise it? Is it just a case of people coming in and asking?
At the present time, pretty much that's where it is. We will be putting it out in the brochure. It's sort of the timing that when we first introduced it was sort of after the time we had all of our information together. So it will gradually be more widespread and more knowledgeable through different vehicles of advertising. Initially, it's been sort of individuals requesting. We've always had individuals coming in and requesting assistance. So this gives us a plan in place for staff to address it when they do.
That's great.
Councillor Grant?
Yeah, I was just wondering, I was on the same vein with that and wondering if you could just explain a little bit more about how that works. I'm not really familiar with how that would be implemented or who would qualify or how that would work.
The qualifications is based on the low income statistics that we have. So if you're a family of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that figure would vary. So you come in and basically sign a declaration that your income is below that particular level and give us proof of residence. We require that. It means that you are a Comox resident. We ask for care card numbers, picture ID or something, a hydro bill or something of that nature, which shows that you're in there. Once it's determined that you meet those requirements as far as income, then we provide you with a card which gives you a 50% discount on programs. There's actually 5 free visits and 4 50% discounts. So thinking that we offer our programs in quarters, then basically each quarter you would be eligible for a 50% discount on some activity. And so it does make it accessible for everyone. To date, the majority of the people that apply for it are single-parent families. And so it's definitely an assist for it.
Great.
The first one was applied for by a fellow with 3 8-year-olds. And he's a single parent with 3 8, and he said, how did you get 3 8-year-olds? So actually they adopted one, and then immediately after adoption his wife became pregnant and had twins. So,
It sounds like a great program.
Yes, just a compliment to your staff. I was at the fitness studio in the evening, which I don't normally go, around 5, 6 o'clock or so, and I could not believe the number of young teens and early 20s that were, both boys and girls, that were using it. And that's just wonderful to see. And it's attracting them, and it seems to be keeping them, because talking to them, they seem to be coming regularly there. So that's the target group we'd really like to see doing it. So hats off to your staff for that. I got a memo today about the opening of the fitness facility at Anderton Park. Is that going to be overseen by Rec Department?
no, it's being put in by Parks. However, it's pretty much an open. It's not something that we need to program or look at designing. Al can speak more to it than I can.
My question just was, when is it going to be open? Someone had asked me when it's going to be open for the public.
Monday. So it's coming Monday the 15th.
So that kickoff ceremony is going to be for use, the public can use it after that.
That's correct. Yes.
Terrific.
Yeah, we're looking at relying on the congregate care facilities and the physiotherapy community to really actively promote this this initiative, this project, because a lot of the equipment that's included in that layout are specific to the needs of people requiring physiotherapy type of exercise as well. So Berwick has been informed, Stevenson Place has been informed, and we'll be reaching out to some of the physiotherapy practitioners in the community as well to join in and celebrate not only the opening but also their programming. So I think word will get out and more organized programming, sort of street programming will happen, which is kind of exciting. More affordable option for some folks out there that are looking for something a little non-traditional. So,
The one they built in Courtney near the Filbert Center, seniors, Evergreen Seniors, has been a great success.
Very popular.
So it'll be somewhat similar experience, I would imagine, here, combined with the fact that we have it in a great location.
Well, hats off to park staff then as well, because boy, it wasn't that long ago when we were thinking about applying for the grant, and now it's ready to go. That's
It
terrific.
came together quite quickly. I wish we had it completed a little earlier when we had that great weather pattern. A bit fearful now with the rains coming, I'm sure we can tough it out.
And then the tennis court's going to be the next portion of the project, I understand?
That's correct, yes. Courts 1 through 4 are looking to be replaced in the spring of 2013.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Yes, Councilor Swift.
I just have a question, Jim. Can you just comment on the cleaning process and the cost? Is it cost saving or how does it compare or can you?
The cost is very similar to the chemicals that we were using before, so we're not looking at a huge difference. We did have invest a few dollars in the foggers and things of that nature, which is not exorbitant. It was probably under $500 from that perspective. It does save us some staff time. So I would say at this point in time, due to the results of what we're doing, there is some cost savings too. Now we're definitely able to accomplish a lot more at the same time frame.
And then clean. Great. Thank you.
All right. Any further? Seeing none, then that completes our agenda, and the motion to adjourn will be done.
Second.
All in favor?